One of my favorite parts of Twisted Wonderland's story is the unique magic reveals. These unique abilities, which are tied directly to each character and their circumstances, can be a nice little bit of insight into their interior world beyond the surface level characteristics we get to see on screen. However, since these abilities are so deeply tied to the characters themselves, they can be a little hard to objectively rank. One of our lovely Discord members, though, had the idea of ranking each unique magic by its day-to-day usability. So this video is going to be dedicated to my thoughts on that matter. I'm going to be ranking each and every ability that has been released in the English server by how useful they would be in my day-to-day life on this little space rock we call Earth. Since we are talking about every single character's unique magic, this video is going to contain story spoilers for EN server content, so consider this your spoiler warning. Now then, let us start in Heartstable, as is tradition, with Mr. Ace Trappola. Now, Ace has a fun little ability called Joker's Wild, where he is able to redirect or somehow take or mimic someone else's unique magic, or I would assume any sort of spell that they are casting. As long as Ace can understand its composition, he can probably take it over. This is the newest unique magic that we have discovered narratively. We do not have any other information about how it works because of the way that Book 7 is set up, and because Book 8 has not come to the EN server, and we don't even have 7.5 yet as of this recording. I don't really know exactly how Ace's magic works. I assume we'll get some sort of clarification later on, kind of like how we did with Epel and Deuce. But for now, the only thing that I know concretely is that Ace was able to take Riddle's magic and use it against him. And I am going off of the very big assumption that the spell needs to be cast by the other mage before Ace can take it from them. I think it's... I don't know what to do because it's very similar to what Floyd does, except it has more direction. And I don't really understand how it works. And so for it, Ace is going to go in meh. I don't know how this ability would work very well in real life. The way that I could see it working is the way that Ace is able to copycat people off of looking at them, right? The way that Ace learned how to do sleight of hand magic was because he would watch his brother and he mimicked his actions, and he basically looks to learn. So his special magic in many ways also reflects this aspect of his character, because he's able to look, learn, and then use what he has learned to cast whatever magic he is targeting with his special spell. Given that, and given who I am, I don't think that this would be very useful for me because I can't even remember what I had for breakfast. You're gonna show me something, I'm not gonna remember it, guys. It is in one eyeball, out the other. It does not stick with me very well, but I don't think that it is impractical. I think for other folks, it would work just fine. I think having that ability to just see something once and then be able to do it would be very useful for certain instances. It's just not something that I'm gonna be able to do. So I'm gonna put him in meh, and that's where he's gonna stay. Deuce Spade, however. Mr. Double Down. Oh gosh, I really like this unique magic and it works so well for Deuce. But given that, in real life, I think that this is just impracticality at its finest. Deuce is delightful. Deuce being a protector makes sense. Deuce's special magic being able to absorb hits and then send them right back out, very, very useful. The way I see this happening in real life is you just getting into a scuffle because you need to take some sort of damage to then be able to dish it out, right? That is basically how this spell works. That is essentially the essence of this ability. And so in a world where magic doesn't necessarily exist in the exact same way, I feel like it gets translated into having to get hit with a punch to then punch back quite literally. And I just don't think that that's very practical at all. I don't get into a lot of fights, you know, little law-abiding citizen over here. So I really don't know when I would even have the occasion to use this. Now, in a self-defense scenario, it probably would be nice, but it still requires you to be in a place of danger before you can do that damage. So I still don't think it's fully like practical to use compared to some other abilities that we're going to get into later. As much as I love Deuce, it's a nah for me. Not today, bud. Sorry. Trey Clover is up next with his little doodle suit, which is the JP name. In English, it is Paint the Roses, but in my brain, I think because I listened to Trey say it initially, and I'm not good at reading. If any of my streams have ever taught any of us anything, it is that I cannot read. So in my brain, it is just Doodle Suit, and I think that in my brain, that connection works way better for what his ability is. Trey is able to overwrite characteristics of a physical thing. So for instance, in book 1, this becomes him being able to overwrite the taste of the chestnut tart into whatever sort of taste people want it to be. In the later part of book 1, he's able to change the rose trees, shrubs, whatever they are, that Riddle is trying to unalive folks with into playing cards that are way more harmless, right? And the opposite is true in book 7 when he uses his special magic to make the hedge maze a literal death trap. This ability is so useful. Literally the entirety of like alchemists have been trying to do that for forever, right? Like the whole thing about alchemy transmuting things into other things. Trey is just able to do that. Now, I don't think that Trey's transformations are permanent. I think they only last for the duration of the casting. And also the chestnut tart did not physically change, although we can see that Trey can do that with other things. He has more of control over that. And I think that it is still ridiculously useful regardless. There are so many little applications between those two extremes that this just works so well for. I would love to be able to drink a lot of water, but not have it taste like water. And I know that there are things out there that can do that, but if I could just snap my fingers and have it be like that and not have to purchase things for it to be like that, it'd be a great time. If you're on the highway and someone's mattress falls out of the back of their truck and it's hurtling towards you at concerning speeds, you could just change it into like foam bubbles, and then you just have to whoosh whoosh your windshield wipers and you'd be fine. There are so many instances where this little like snap decision, this little snap usage could be so beneficial to your continued existence. It just seems like such a good time. I cannot praise it enough, even though it is also terrifying. Like there's good and bad with this, right? You can make things literal death traps, or you can save yourself from death traps. Like the two extremes exist. It really depends on the person. But I think that this would be ridiculously useful. I could use this so often. You could do so many things. It's just great. This is fantastic. I totally understand why Trey downplays it now, because if I had this ability, I wouldn't want anyone to know. I wouldn't want anyone to know. Can you think of the pranks you could pull on people? I'm just going to stop myself there before I go down too much of a rabbit hole. I can't believe this doesn't actually exist. This would be fantastic. A similar thing is happening with Cater. We have Split Card, which allows Cater to split himself into clones that can then act independently and do their own thing, but he still kind of has control over them and is able to give them instructions and all those sorts of things. I can't believe this doesn't exist. I mean, I can. I understand the physics of this would be wild, but it seems like such a useful... Think about it. If you could have more than one of you could get so much done in a day. You could get so much done. If you didn't want to go to work, you could have your clone go to work and do stuff for you, I guess, maybe, and then they could come back and then not be there. There's many ethical concerns with that sort of thing. We do have to give our clones enough human rights because they are human, I guess, in this scenario. But you would be able to get so much done. You could min-max so many things. You could clean your house like so quickly because you could have one KK on living room, 1 KK on bedroom. You could have 1 KK on bathroom. All of it would get done at the same time. And then you'd have so much more time to like cook dinner Or you could have KK on Din Din. You would be able to wash your car so efficiently. You'd be able to garden really efficiently. You could do yard work super well. There's so many little practical applications for this. It would just be so incredibly useful. I don't know if it's more or less useful than Trey. The ability to clone yourself is very efficient, but it's efficient within more specific things than Trey's magic. Trey can apply his spell to anything to change the characteristics. But again, that doesn't necessarily mean that the things are going to change. You can't just have an infinite supply of gold, and eventually that gold will transfer back to whatever it was originally, right? So it's not like a permanent sort of thing. However, I feel like Trey's is more life-saving than Cater's, but I don't really know that that's true. I think I'm going to keep Trey above Cater just because of the more life-saving aspects. Riddle, off with your head. The ability to cut off someone from their magical abilities by placing a collar on them. In our little Earth scenario, all that this would do is give you a new accessory. And that is very impractical. I don't know about you, but I don't want to be collared and then have to go to the grocery store to do my errands, right? I don't think I should be at the grocery store using the collar on anyone else. The only practical purpose that this could possibly have is maybe like a timeout scenario or like a public shaming sort of thing. But the public shaming's kind of weird. And a lot of people will probably just assume that you're wearing it as some sort of weird fashion statement, not that you're actually being punished. So I don't think that there is any sort of effect that this has that is practical for any sort of purpose. Cosplay, maybe. If you were trying to cosplay somebody in Heartslable, this would be kind of cool to just, materialize out of nowhere. But it's the same exact collar every single time. And if Twisted Wonderland didn't exist, but you had this ability, what is it doing for you? And in a similar way to Trey's, the collar only exists for as long as Riddle is able to cast. So as soon as the casting goes away, or as soon as Riddle decides that it's done, the collar goes away. So you can't really sell these either, because if something happened to you, all the collars would disappear. And then all the people would get angry at you for having sold the little collars to them because now they went poof and they feel scammed out of their money. So I don't think that this would be very practical at all in a day-to-day scenario. So he's down there with Deuce. Anyway, moving on to Savannah Claw, we're going to start with Jack. And Jack's special magic is Unleash the Beast, where he turns himself into a big fluffy wolf. This, I think, is decent enough for a Tuesday. I don't know that it is in the top tier, but I do think that this could be practical in the right circumstances. I know, for one, that when I was a little kid, loved to pretend that I was animals because I was obsessed with animals, and so I would pretend to run around like a dog. If I could actually become a dog, that would be super fun to childhood me. Adult me doesn't really need this ability though. I guess it could be good if you were trying to sniff things out. Like if you're trying to find where you put your gummy worms and you can't remember, you could sniff them out in dog form, I guess. There's medical and safety reasons that we have dogs being able to sniff certain substances, right? So you could do that for yourself, I guess. But I don't think you can get a job doing that with this special magic in the way that society functions on Earth. I don't really know. This is a weird one, but I like the idea that you're able to do the thing. Like if you needed to run a distance, right? Let's say you need to escape for some reason, right? You could just turn into Big Fluffy Puppy and then you could run away and people aren't going to necessarily connect Big Fluffy Puppy with the person that they were pursuing for whatever deeds they were going to do. So if you're running down a dark alley and all of a sudden, you're getting chased and you turn into a big fluffy wolf, and then you could even turn on them, and then that's going to be scary because they're not going to know where this big fluffy wolf came from. So then you're going to be able to protect yourself that way. I think that there are certain levels of security that this ability could afford you, perhaps. You could become a local legend. You could become the werewolf in your local community. That could be fun. You could cause a little bit of chaos that way. That seems like a fun little thing to do on a Tuesday afternoon. And based off that, he's going to stay in that upper tier. Ruggie, though, we have Laugh With Me. Ruggie's ability to control other people's movements to mimic his own. This, I think, could be useful in the right circumstances. So the ways that we see Ruggie use it in-game to get the trade with the deluxe sandwich for the red bean bun, that I think could be a practical application for everyday life, right? I don't think the Stampede is necessarily as useful. I don't think that hurting other people in the way that Ruggie does is very useful at all. But I do think it could be useful to perhaps save somebody. So if you make them stop before crossing the road because they're not paying attention, if you do subtle things in that way, it could be a very valiant usage. I don't really know how practical it would be for your day-to-day life. I mean, maybe if you're in a rush at the grocery store, you could potentially like get someone to move out of the way quickly or like more quickly so you could grab your oranges. But like that's kind of not a very good thing to do to other people, I feel like. I don't know what the moral implications of using Ruggie's special magic on other people is. I feel like it's kind of not a good thing. I think I'm gonna put it in meh, because I feel like it's an ability that if I had, I wouldn't really use. Because you can only really change like the physical things that someone's happening. So you could have somebody charging you. I don't know why my brain immediately goes to a scenario where we're being chased, but this is what we're doing today. If you have someone chasing you, you could, I guess, get them to stop by having them mimic you. And you could be able to like get around them because you're doing that, because they can't, you know, you could get close and then run away from each other, but they can't grab you as if you're controlling them. I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm going to keep it in meh. I'm going to keep it in meh. I think it's going to go above Ace though, as I don't really fully understand Ace. I do understand what Ruggie's got going on. So we're going to put it up there. Leona, Mr. King's Roar. What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do with this? This is an ability where Leona is basically able to dehydrate things, more or less. That is kind of how it is explained in the Savannah Clog novel. He more or less is able to take the moisture out of stuff, which then creates the sand and creates the cracks and the earthquakes and all that sort of stuff, right? I don't know how practical doing such a thing is in your day-to-day life. I guess it could make weeding very easy if you have a garden or like yard work, if you're able to target it in the way that Leona is able to target it, right? He has that sort of mastery where he can control the sand as well after he creates it, which is also a detail from the Savannah Clog novel, which is wild because I don't think that gets said in the game. But if you're able to manipulate it to that point, you could basically pinpoint weeds in your garden and then basically assassinate them. And I think that that makes this ability decent enough for a Tuesday. The other things you could probably do with this is you could dust things if they were coming at you. So like if you were in the car scenario, like with Trey, you could dust the mattress before it gets to you probably. And then you just have some sand pelting your car, which is not as lethal, I would assume. You can have other stuff like that. And I think that it is practical in that way. I just think that Trey's magic is more practical in those instances than Leona's, because with Trey's, the thing will eventually go back. So like if you are doing the mattress scenario, the person's still going to be able to go and get their mattress. If you use Leona's special magic, that mattress no longer exists. It is gone forever. So it's a little bit more permanent, which makes it a little bit more scary. But I do think that it's decent enough for a Tuesday. It can work in some of those same instances. It just has like a different end result. And because of that, it's not going up into that top tier. Next up is Floyd with Bind the Heart. This is a special ability that allows him to basically redirect magic. It more or less gets things to bounce off him. So in my brain, it would be like having a little bubble pop up around you that if like someone was throwing a ball at you, right? You're playing catch out in the yard with good old papa, and you don't want to get hit in the face with a rogue baseball. You could pop up this bubble and then it would bounce off and get redirected. That is what I would see this being like in our world here because of the way that magic may or may not exist. So because of that, I do think that it is decent enough for a Tuesday. I think you could absolutely cause some chaos with this if you just popped open that bubble randomly and maybe pushed some folks aside. But I do think it would require you to have pretty good reflexes to be able to understand that the thing is coming at you. And if you don't have those reflexes, it's not going to be very useful to you. Given that I am one of those people, I should probably bring this right down into Met. But I think that there are applications for it. I just don't think that it is the most applicable thing in the world. Jade, on the other hand, with Shock the Heart, forces you to speak the truth. But once and once alone, if we believe Jade on that one. I think that this could be useful, but it is very dangerous. I think that having this would be a bit of a danger to civilization. Leona, I guess, should also be down here. A lot of people should be down here, I guess, if we're doing this realistically. But I think that Jade having this ability, or if you had this ability, you could get yourself into so much trouble by exposing the truth. I don't think that this ability is nearly as useful as it would seem because you have to be so careful about the instances in which you use it. I think in the world of Twisted Wonderland, within the realm of what Jade and Floyd does, within Octagonal and within their larger part in their perhaps mafia family, this ability makes way, way too much sense. Realistically, if you are not in that sort of atmosphere, the ability to get the truth becomes a little less useful in that traditional sense, because you can't just willy-nilly use this ability to see whether or not your mom was lying to you about your face getting stuck like that if you keep making that expression, right? Because once you use it, it's done. So you have to be very, very careful about when you use it, how you use it, and who you use it on. And that, I think, can get you into a lot of trouble. This would get you into a lot of trouble in the interpersonal realm if you were using this willy-nilly. I think if it came up in a meeting, like there are ways for you to completely sabotage your own life, but also other people's lives with this ability. It's almost like a sticker sheet, right? You get stickers because you like the stickers and they're so pretty, but you don't want to stick them on anything because once you stick them onto something, you can't get them off. And then if you lose that thing or the sticker starts fading, then you don't have the sticker anymore. So maybe I'm gonna rename it to Sticker Sheet. And I think that that's very exclusive to Jade. I think I have my qualms with him specifically. All right, Azul Ashen Grotto. It's a deal. The ability to basically do anything for anyone in exchange from anything from anyone, so long as it is through that buffer of that contract. I, perhaps controversially, think that this is only decent enough for a Tuesday. I think that Azul's ability to do this is fantastic for him and for people who are smart. But I, myself, would probably not be able to use this that effectively. This is very much Fae behavior in the way that our world works here on Earth. To have the ability to grant anyone kind of anything via these contracts, or at least you have the allure of being able to do that, right? Because we see in Azul's ceremonial vignette that he actually has to work to get the potion for Vil. He has to work super hard to make that toner. So it's not like it just poofs out of nowhere. There is an element of hard work within this spell and within this ability. It is not magical in the Rumpelstiltskin's sense. But I think in real life, to make this ability effective, you would have to almost present yourself as Rumpelstiltskin, and that I think can be very difficult to do. So if you do not have the connections made, then this ability isn't useful. But if you do, or you're able to do that, then I think that this could become something that is actually beneficial to you. I think in a day-to-day sense, it's not all that practical until you get to that point, but I do think that it would be fun to have regardless, because you could also do crazy bar bets with this ability, and I think that that'd be super fun. You can have little bets over darts. You can do pool shark things. All hypothetically, you could do these things. Hypothetically, you could probably make a pretty dollar off of these contracts because that they would be magically enforceable, right? Perhaps there are scenarios where you could have a little bit of fun with this ability, and perhaps they're not that serious, right? Maybe it's just a little bet between friends, right? But I still think that there's enough fun to be had here that it can stay in decent enough for a Tuesday, even though the ability itself is not super practical. So I'm gonna leave Azul up there, and I'm gonna stop talking before I get myself into any more trouble. Alrighty, Kalim, Oasis Maker. This ability single-handedly could save us all as a society. The ability to create massive amounts of fresh water, potable drinking water, out of basically nowhere, that is a life-saving ability. Point blank, full stop. There's no scenario where this would not be useful. Unless you were in the middle of a lake, probably. But if there is a drought, if you are thirsty, you could just materialize water. If there are people that don't have enough water, you can materialize it. If there's not enough clean drinking water somewhere, while you're putting in the infrastructure, you can help people out. There are so many uses for this that go far beyond the personal realm, that this ability, if it actually existed, would be more valuable than pretty much anything in my mind. This is fantastic. This is life-giving, literally. It has to be at the top of this tier list. I don't think that there's any way to contest that. He has to be up there and literally life-saving, because it is literally life-saving. Now, there are scenarios where making water would not save a life. Obviously, if someone needs a blood transfusion, that is a different story. But generically speaking, this is just so useful. Snake Charmer. Oh, my. This could topple governments. This is something that the CIA specifically has been so interested for such a long time. If MK Ultra is anything to go off of, this is... I don't even know where to put it. I don't know where to put Jamil, because the ability is so terrifying. Where Kalim is the, oh my gosh, I can't believe this doesn't exist, this is literally life-saving, Jamil is the, I sure hope that this can't actually happen because the impact would be devastating if it got in the wrong hands. They are the two extremes, more so than Jade. Like, Jade being able to get the truth, yeah, it's kind of a double-edged sword, it's a little bit of a monkey's paw. But being able to hypnotize people to do whatever you want them to do, catastrophe. If you were able to get to the right place at the right time, or able to hypnotize people on the way to that path, there is so much chaos and destruction that you could do. You could topple world governments, you could topple economies, you could convince armies to do atrocities because no one would be able to stop them. This has so many bad implications. Granted, you could also do this in a positive sense. You could maybe help people overcome their fear of spiders because you can hypnotize that out of them. That could be nice. I just think that the negative implications of Jamil's special magic would be what ends up getting utilized over all else. And I don't like that, and I don't think that we should have that, and I don't want people's free will getting taken away from them, so he is going all the way down there. Vil Schoenheit, the fairest one of all. He is able to place a curse onto anything that he touches, and that curse can have any sort of effect. This is reportedly so powerful that no one, not even Vil, can undo the effect of the curse until the conditions have been met for it, like we see in Vargas' camp, where the curse takes effects on Vargas, and then Vil is able to negate the curse after that. But he cannot negate the curse until after whatever it is done. So like the poison apple juice can't take that back. The cake thing that we have at the beginning of book 5, he could have taken back, but he wasn't gonna. So this is a little tricky because you have to be very careful with what conditions you are setting. But I do think that this would fall into the I can't believe this doesn't actually exist, because theoretically you could just cure cancer. You could just say, I cursed this bottle of water to cure cancer, and then it could do it, presumably, with this. In that way, it probably should go above Trey. The effects of this could also be catastrophic, because you could touch a bottle of water and say, I curse this to be poison, the most deadly poison, the poison specifically meant for Cusco. You could do that too. But I think that, unlike Jamil, where I feel like the consequences would be catastrophic no matter what, because it would get misused by the powers at be or whoever, there would be a way for Jamil's power to get abused in the wrong way. And I have a feeling that that is exactly what would happen if it existed in real life, given history. Vil's, on the other hand, I think can be done a little bit more stealthily, and I think that it could just become more like miracle-esque as long as you didn't overdo it. And I think that that could be very helpful. And in fact, he could even curse like an already known site to have those properties within the water of that spring, or within the rock, or on the statue. He could do those sorts of things, or whoever has this power could do those sorts of things, and then it could get attributed to those legends and stories and things, and you wouldn't have to be directly involved or directly at risk, but you could still have a positive impact on the world. And I think for that reason, he needs to be, and I can't believe this doesn't actually exist, Rook Hunt with Arrow Afar now, or as I have just learned, apparently is I see you in Japanese. This is terrifying, but in practical application, all Rook is doing is putting an air tag in something, and that behavior's pretty normal, so I think that this is gonna go decent enough for a Tuesday. Now, there are unethical ways to get air tags and trackers into places that they shouldn't be, and this special magic basically allows that tracker to be hidden, so there are ways in which it could be done very, very naughtily. However, you'd never lose your keys again. You'd never lose your phone again. You'd never lose your wallet. All these things would never happen to you because you'd have an air tag in your literal brain, and then you'd always be able to find it, and it'd be great. It's very practical in a little sense like that. I think it'd be nice and fun to have that ability to be able to find those things. You could even cast it on your most precious childhood stuffy, and then you're never gonna lose it. It'd be great. But it's also very mundane. There's no real effect to this that becomes earth-shattering in either extreme. It's just like, hey, you can have slightly more practical and less expensive tracking software because you would be the tracking software. And so for that reason, I think he deserves to be in that tier. Epel Felmir, Mr. Crimson Slumber. The ability to force somebody into a slumber in a glass coffin, which also acts as a great barrier to protect them. This one I don't think is very practical at all unless you are doing something like an EMT, maybe, provided that the coffin is able to stabilize them. So I don't know if Crimson Slumber just puts somebody to sleep and that's it, or if it like stabilizes you. I have a feeling it just puts you to sleep. So like it could help if you have, like, if you know somebody that needs help sleeping, or you know, you're really nervous on airplanes and you want to sleep on the airplane, but you also don't want to die if the airplane crashes. Maybe this would be practical for those instances, but I don't think like your day-to-day life you're going to be using this very much. And I also don't really know that you can cast it on yourself and then cancel it within 8 hours. I don't really know how that works. I would have to assume that you can't do that. I would have to assume that Epel cannot cast this on himself because then he can't uncast it, because then he'll be in eternal sleep for however long. So I think I'm still going to put it in impracticality at its finest. I just don't see how this could be useful to anyone, really, in any instance. So that's just how that's going to go, unfortunately. In Ignihide, we only have Idia because Ortho does not have magic. So Idia, the gate to the underworld, allowing Idia to open up the literal gate to the underworld to unleash the horrors of the phantoms upon the land of the living. How would this make any sense in our real world? I guess you could do the same thing. Maybe it just opens a portal to hell. I don't really know that that would be very practical, to be honest. I know that there are lovely little jokes out there where people are like, yeah, you know, we just doing girly pop things, and it is summoning an entity from a far known land. I don't know that that is practical outside of a joking context. So I'm just gonna keep Idia in that tier. Although, depending on the entities that you would be summoning, perhaps it has catastrophic consequences for the universe. Maybe we shouldn't be pulling cosmic beings out of their spaces and onto our plane of existence. Maybe they should just be able to stay where they need to stay. And maybe that is what we should be doing. Maybe this is not impractical. Maybe this is universe shattering. I don't know. But I have a feeling if you did it enough times and you disrupted enough entities, that it would probably have some sort of consequences. So we're gonna keep him in that tier with Jamil. I literally did not think anyone else on this list was going to go down there except for maybe Malleus, but here he is, Mr. Idia. Oh my, we might as well get Malleus over with since we started talking about him. A Fae of Malevolence. This creates a barrier that not only traps you within it, it also causes you to fall asleep. It puts you in a point of stasis, and it forces you into a dream world which Malleus can control. There are a lot of layers to this unique magic. I think the ability to put yourself to sleep and then also, or like put somebody to sleep and then also protect them is very similar to Epel. So it's not quite that practical in that sense. But you do have the ability to control their dreams and look into their subconscious. To a degree, right? Malleus is not able to fully control anyone's dreams. We can see that very clearly in Book 7. There are certain parts of their dreams that get influenced by his perception of them, but ultimately there is some sort of element of their subconscious. There is still part of them that is then able to control that dream because it is part of their subconscious. So I think that this could be a better way to do the Jade thing, but it's not concrete because the subconscious space is also super wild, and you're going to have to like forcibly put them to sleep in order to use this ability. And if you use it like Malleus did, then it is catastrophic consequences for the entire universe. In your day-to-day life, I don't think that you would be using this very often unless you had some sort of reason to get into somebody's head, unless you were trying to become like a phantom thief or something. And even then, I don't think that you'd be able to change their consciousness. I don't think you could like forcibly change their heart like you can in Persona 5. I don't think that it works like that, but I do think it could be interesting on a personal level to like get to see what other people are thinking. It could also be terrifying to do that. And I think the methodology behind it specifically being what it is just makes it very impractical and also very scary. You could really do some serious harm to your interpersonal relationships if you were using this without consent. And I don't really know that even if you were using it with consent, that you would be prepared for what you would learn from that person, because there are certain things that are just meant to stay inside. I don't really know where else I could possibly put it, because it's not even a sticker sheet scenario. So catastrophic consequences is where I think this will land. Now, Silver, on the other hand, has meet in a dream, which basically just lets him dream hop into other people's dreams, but 9 times out of 10, Silver doesn't remember anything when he wakes up, right? So I think that this would be fun and like decent enough for a Tuesday, but like at the very bottom of that tier. Because I think you would have a lot of fun times, maybe hopping between dreams or perhaps seeing things, but you're never gonna really remember what happened. So there's no actual harm done to anyone. It's just kind of an interesting thing that you'd probably be aware of, but I don't think that like it would really impact anything at all, which in theory should make it go into meh. But I'm just fascinated by that idea. So for that reason, I'm gonna just keep it in there. Sebek's Digvolt, or the Living Bolt, as he is called, never, only by me, this one singular time. Sebek's body becomes lightning. He gets to become a little zippy zap, and he gets to zippy zap on over to wherever, paralyzing a person, just moving very quickly. He doesn't have really good control over it, but he is able to zip zap himself to where he needs to get to. I think that this could be decent enough for a Tuesday, but you would have to be very, very careful about what you are doing when you do this. You could zip yourself to somewhere. You could generate a little bit of electricity, maybe to charge your phone, perhaps, if you needed to. Maybe if you had that sort of level of control over this ability. There are small little ways that it could be practical for your life. I don't think on the daily it's going to do you very much good, but I think that there are ways that you could manipulate this magic into being able to have it become practical. Just don't do it like in an airport or, you know, at the bus station. Like it's very situational, so it's not going anywhere else, but it's interesting. It's interesting enough. Lilia Van Rouge, Far Cry Cradle. Being able to touch an object and replay memories associated with it or things that happened around it. I can't believe this doesn't actually exist. This would be so fun for any sort of antiques that you have. If you're going into a new house, a new apartment, you could kind of get some history. There are ways that you'd be able to like understand things a little bit better about wherever you are. It could be very scarring depending on what happened at those locations in the past, but it could also be very useful. I think it'd just be so interesting to be able to understand the history behind your antiques without having to go to somebody. You could figure out if things were like genuine or fakes, counterfeits, because you'd be able to see the memories of that object. And if that object was a counterfeit, it would not have interesting memories, presumably. It is on the decent enough for a Tuesday tier in actuality, but I like it a lot, and this is my tier list, so I'm putting it up on the same tier as Vil and Trey and Cater. Grimmy Grim is up next, and he does not technically have special magic at this point in time in the story, but I'm including him anyway because he does have the special ability to be a little annoying putz that somehow has wormed his way into all of our hearts for the most part. So I am going to put him in. I can't believe this doesn't actually exist because it's very sad that Grim does not actually exist in the real world. I think that this is a tragedy beyond belief. I think we should all have little flaming kitty cats that eat us out of house and home in our lives, so he belongs in that tier. Now we have 3 special guests to talk about before we conclude. The first of which is Rollo Flom and his Dark Fire, where he is able to completely cover himself in flames, which are only able to hurt you if you are afraid. The stronger your emotions are against him, the stronger his special magic is against you. But if you are not afraid, then obviously it doesn't affect you, like we see at the end of Glorious Masquerade. This one's a fun one. This one's a really cool party trick. It's a very dangerous party trick, but it is still very cool. I don't think that it would be practical in your day-to-day life unless you were running away from somebody. If you just spontaneously combusted in front of them, I think you'd have a good chance of scaring off your pursuer and saving yourself from that scenario. I think it could be very practical in that. Perhaps if you want to toast some marshmallows, but there's no fire around, you could turn yourself into the campfire and then your friends could roast the marshmallows. That seems like it could be fun. So he's decent enough for a Tuesday. He's gonna be a little bit above silver, but you know, there's a world where that makes sense, right? There's an instance where it makes sense, and it's a little bit more than the meh. It's a little bit better, maybe, possibly. Again, I just think it's funny. I'm losing it at my own campfire analogy. Oh no, this is not good. Anyway, that's where I think Rollo's gonna stay. Fellow Honest, though, Mr. Life is Fun. The ability to basically have people a little bit more inclined and easygoing and wanting to do what you're suggesting them. Basically being able to manipulate the power of suggestion to try to get an outcome that you want. I think that this does actually exist in our world. A lot of social engineering is basically this entire concept. The way that Fellow's character is set up is basically just a person that exists and tries to swindle people. These people exist in our world. So I don't really know where to put him on the tier list because he basically exists, and so does this ability. So it's not, I can't go and I can't believe this does. I mean, I guess he can go in decent enough for a Tuesday. But he's gonna go to the top of that tier because he just is a person. He just is a conman. This ability is just conning people. It's being able to read people and con them. This is probably one of the most realistic special magics in the game. And I think because of that, he has to go in decent enough for a Tuesday because, yeah, sure. Now, Skully J. Graves. Mr. October 31st. Oh man, I honestly forget what the heck the English name is because October 31st is just so funny to me. And because it is so funny to me, he's gonna go up in, I can't believe this doesn't actually exist. The ability to just turn people into pumpkins is so funny. It is probably one of the most impractical things in this tier list. But it's so funny because you just imagine just walking, like if you had somebody chasing after you, right? And down a dark alley, you could just turn them into a pumpkin and then you can get away. There are things you can do with this spell. Gosh darn it, the Halloween boys are taking me completely out of this. Anyway, I do think that you could use it. There are some practical applications, I guess. It can potentially save your life. You could potentially save somebody else's life. If they're running away from someone, you could just turn them into a pumpkin and then the other person's never going to be able to find them because they're a pumpkin. And so you saved them in that way. I guess that is the best justification I have for putting him in this tier, but good Lord. Oh, I also almost forgot Chenya. We kind of know what Chenya's is. I don't remember what the name of his special magic is, but it's basically him being able to turn invisible, right? That I think is decent enough for a Tuesday. We're gonna put that next to Rook because it's also a concerning ability. It would be nice, I think, to turn invisible so that way you could get out of situations that you don't want to be in, like if you are being chased. That is kind of the only sort of practicality I can see this ability having. I mean, you could do pranks and things like Chenya does, but that's not exciting in ways of some of the other people. I don't know. I think Chenya can just sit there. It's cool. It's nice. Again, there's not really much you could do with it unless you were doing naughty things, which you should not be doing. I do not condone naughty things. I've talked about a lot of stuff on this tier list, but I do not condone any of the naughty things. It just feels like it's a, you know, the way I'm describing it to me, it just kind of feels like a meh thing. Like, yeah, it exists. You could have some fun with it, but like there's better things you could be doing with your time and energy for sure, for sure. So there you have it. That is everybody's special magic ranked by how practical it would be in our everyday lives, according to moi. At least the magics we know about on the EN server. Let me know what your thoughts are down below and whether or not you agree or disagree with my placements and takes. Do you have a different opinion on Riddle or Jade? Do you think Kalim shouldn't be in his own tier by his lonesome? Let me know all of that and more down below. But of course, if comments aren't your thing, you could always like and subscribe instead to show your support. And before you go, I just have to remind you that you're amazing and I hope you have a wonderful day.